this is a thing that is important to look. Humans, when they look to other humans, they don't see the true human, they see their patterns. But every human has a true self, and every human has a pure heart. And calling for those to wake up and to come out and take place and charge of their lives, it's what we need to do. When all the humans remember who they really are and what is our true nature, then true hope can come to the world.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spiritual Forum. I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to introduce my guests in just a minute, but I just want to encourage you to subscribe to my newsletter at thespiritualforum.org and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you're an audio listener, subscribe to wherever you are listening now. It really helps get this message of hope, inspiration, and awakening out in the world. And I'm just having more and more interesting guests, so I know you don't want to miss an episode. One more reminder about my Whole Planet Spirituality Forum and Retreat. It is at Unity Village, October the 17th to the 20th, or I keep forgetting to say this, you can attend remotely. So you can go to thespiritualforum.org/retreat. We're building a community of people who are planet-centered and animal lovers and spiritual-minded people, spiritual-hearted people. And we come together and just really, really connect and co-create a world that works for all. So let me introduce you to my two guests today, Norberto Rodrigues and Kim Shelton. Kim's been making award-winning independent documentary films for over 40 years. Among her films are The Lost Borders, Coming of Age in the Wilderness, The Welcome, 1,000 Mothers, and Already Free. Her film Already Free was showcased on the Spiritual Forum podcast in April of 2021, and I did 2 episodes back then. And a lot's happened since then. Kim returns to share about her new film, which is called Any Given Moment. And both of these films chronicle the healing and spiritual awakening of Norberto Rodrigues, who is my second guest. Norberto resides in Portugal and is here to share his story, which includes healing a severe spinal injury in his lower back and a full spiritual awakening through the life cultivation path of Ren Xue. The film Any Given Moment will be publicly released in October. Welcome, Kim and Norberto.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you. Last time I did a session with Norberto and another session with you, Kim, and now we're together. So we'll be talking about Norberto's story and also the movie making. And I thought we'd maybe start, Kim, with you sharing why you did this film Already Free, which was a fantastic film. I loved it, and it cataloged the story of Norberto and Dory. So what caused you to come back and continue telling Norberto's story?
Well, I think what happened really was that wasn't the end of the story. In other words, Dory went off and did her own thing, so we really just stayed with Norberto because he was still within the Ren Xue community. And growth just kept happening, and changes happened to him. And this was over a period of years. And we realized that the Already Free was just kind of an outdated film. I mean, not outdated. It served its purpose, but the whole Ren Xue had grown so much, Norberto had grown so much, it's still growing. There's really no end. And I certainly wasn't aware of that as a possibility. So we just wanted to chronicle his growth as much as we could.
I think that's really cool because growth doesn't stop. That is true. Growth doesn't just stop. And so we saw this really interesting growth of this really fabulous, interesting human, Norberto. And so wherever we left off, you're telling the story, or we're telling the story now of what happened afterwards. But Norberto, I think it would be good because I did do a video interview of you 3 years ago. And so we have a lot of new listeners, a lot of new subscribers, and many of them aren't familiar with your story. So maybe you can tell a little bit about your story and how you've transformed and what your life is like now.
Well, it is a long story.
It's a big question.
Well, it's the big question. Yes. But I can make a resume about that. I start. I can say that in a way or another, I start my life cultivation before my 10 years old, somehow like that, and I start Qigong practice with 12. And I was very focused at in the martial arts, so I trained very hard and I pushed my body a lot. And someday I had an accident around, I don't remember what age, but around my 22, something like that. And that accident damaged quite badly my spine. And over time, that got worse and worse and worse until, although I was doing a lot of therapies, there was a moment that there was no solution anymore. And nothing was really helping me anymore. So, from the doctor's view, the only solution that they had was to remove some discs, put some prostheses, and put some metal bars around my spine. And they said that that probably will not make me to feel better, will just avoid me to get worse. And they say that I was too young. And that doctor was quite special because then he said, go and search for other things because sometimes miracles happen. Which was a true doctor because he was not trying to sell his business. He was really trying to find a solution and try to heal. And even if he doesn't know everything, something else can be there that he doesn't know that can help me. But at that time, it was a bit complex because I've tried everything that I could. And the list is very long. From, of course, osteopathy, chiropractic, physiotherapy, Chinese medicine, exercise, shiatsu, microbiotics, hypnotherapy, so many, everything that I could reach, I was doing it. Although those therapies were providing me some relief, some help, overall the situation was getting worse and worse until I reached the bottom. That was when I went to do that surgery. I was ready to do that surgery. But then that doctor said that, and I kept searching for that. And at some moment, I found Ren Xue on internet. That is the creator of Ren Xue. And as soon as I saw his picture, I felt a huge connection with him, an almost ecstatic state.
Mm-hmm.
And even I was in pain already for 6 years with nonstop. For somehow that connection, that's change in my state and in my heart put me for pain-free for 2 days. So, in fact, the change of my state changed the feeling of my body. And then I contact him. On those times, the things were a little bit more difficult than it is now. There was no teachers in Europe like we have now. There was no online programs or things to do like we have now. But they had a DVD training for teachers, and they send me that program. So I start to practice, and I start to feel improvement in a slow pace, but some improvement by day. And was this improvement that was not just a relief? I was improving. I was staying there. I was not going back. And then Melissa told me that if I want to take it serious, I should participate at least in one retreat in my life. And they were organizing the first retreat in the United States. And I decided to go there. And at that moment, everything changed quite in a deep level. On the physical level, when I went to the retreat, I could not sleep in the airplane because of the pain. I could not bend to tie my shoes, and many other things that I could not do. After the retreat, I was doing all those things already. I was able to bend to tie my shoe. I was able to travel. I traveled without pain from United States until Europe. And from that moment on, many things change. But I was improving, and then 1 year after, I think I was fully healed. But there was a strange thing that happened, because when I went to search for that, I was searching for the healing with the idea to go back to my life, to do my martial arts, and I was doing a master degree. I was about to do a PhD, and to dedicate my life to that. But then I found that Ren Xue had something more than that. And I started to work on my consciousness and on my heart, and also out of gratitude. So in the beginning, I was being moved by my own healing, by my own pain, but seeing the results and how effective that method was, I decided that I need to keep improving myself to help the others, because I knew from firsthand what was pain and suffering, and it's not a nice place to be in life, and how desperate those things can be. So seeing other people around me that were suffering and in pain, I felt the responsibility to improve and be able to share with them the tools that I have helped. And I have, as I said before, I had experienced many tools before. I practiced Qigong from an early age. I have practiced yoga and other things. And among all the tools that I have experienced in my life, none was so effective like Ren Xue for me. Not just on the physical level, but also emotional level, conscious level, and the growth in all the fields of life.
Okay, let's
So
pause just for a
that
minute.
was how things start. And yeah,
Okay, I just want to pause for a minute because I know you've got more to your story, and I want to pull a few things out because first of all, I
yeah,
think it's very, 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 very interesting that you did Qigong as a child, and I'm really interested in learning how a child gets interested in Qigong. But before you do that, I also want to comment on how amazing your doctor was, who said sometimes miracles come. And I have never known a doctor in my whole life that had given any advice like go out and find a miracle. And I just really, really think that's an amazing gift. And the third thing I wanted to just point out is I think your search for your healing was also so interesting. The fact that you tried all these things and that like the moment you saw I'll never get his name right. How do you say his name?
you and say,
Yuanse. Yuanse. Let me see if I can get that
yeah,
right. Um, the moment that you saw him, you felt something. You know, you felt like this is the right thing. And I think that's so interesting. That's like your intuition or your heart connecting. And I also have to applaud you because you were really listening to your heart, because a lot of people aren't that in tune. And so, what an interesting life story this is so far. And I know you're going to keep telling it, but the fact that you did Qigong as a child and you're kind of a seeker that early, and then you had enough connection to your inner self to know what was right for you and then pursue that path. I wanted to point that out because I think this is something that's available to everyone once they got on some searching path, that when you kind of surrender to the process, the teacher will show up, or the book will show up, or the modality will show up, or whatever it is. And I just think that's important for everybody to know that happened for you, and it can happen for everybody else as well.
yes, absolutely. Yes, I cannot say why I started Qigong at such an early age. I remember that when I was 8, I went to a library, and I was supposed to go to only read the child books, but I had a special permission, so I was able to rent other books that were not for children. And I remember that I read a book about the Yamabushi, that was a Japanese life cultivation group that they do a lot of meditation. And I think that starts with that. And then I had one of those bookstores that there was, those that you need to go around to, not the modern one, a very old one that you need to be careful not to touch on the books when you are walking in the middle, because there are books everywhere. and not enough shelves. And there was a very nice man there that was always helped me to find books that I wanted. And normally they were not the mainstream. And somehow I got one book about Qigong. And then with martial arts, I started to practice Qigong also with that. And yeah, I was reading all those books about meditation, life cultivation, Kundalini, chakras, and then some philosophers, Nietzsche, and even others. Don't tell me about theories because I'm not good in that.
Most children aren't reading these kinds of things. That's what's so interesting. Like you were on the path really early. I think you were on the path really early. Like you seem like you've been somebody who was being informed by your inner voice or something that pretty early on to have you interested in those kinds of things. So it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
I think we're always kind of prepared for our path. So, well, let's pick
Yeah, I
up
think
from where
because on
we
those times there was no internet at all.
yeah.
So I think it was just intuition, nothing else.
Right. Well, but that's a big thing. Intuition is a big thing. And I think in today's world, cultivating our intuition is something that's I think it's something we all need to be doing, but a lot of people, most of us are kind of cut off from it. So finding that being in tune to what's my next step and what is my you just seem like you were very clear on the steps that you took. And so you found yourself with Yuan Did I get that right? Close?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us about the training there, the Qigong, and then the consciousness training that you did there.
Well, so we have in the previous year we were using another Qigong system, and then I don't remember exactly when Yuan introduces to the Yuan Gong. That was the system that he created. We went to a 6 years training in New Zealand, although the last year was in the United States, but it was a 6 years training in person. And we were doing their intensive retreats of 15 days that we were just basically working very hard on that. And apart from that, I was practicing a lot of at home. Basically, I was doing nothing else. Even if I was doing something else, I was still doing Qigong. So that was the focus. How I was training formally Qigong, something around 6 to 8 hours a day, every day without exception. And then I will spend other time to go inward and try to work on my patterns and to find also read about theories and learn more about the practice, improving the practice and so on. So I have done that for some years. And then I decided that it was time to go out to teach. So I went to Lisbon because I thought that there was more opportunities because it's the biggest city in Portugal. But it was not so easy to do it there. But anyway, I could reach people there and the things keep improving. And but I keep always to use applying the principle of using everyone and everything as your teacher. So every challenge that I was facing in life, every thing that could be seen as bad, I will see it as an opportunity to learn and to look at myself, why I was triggered by that, what was going on with me, what were my thoughts behind, from where those feelings were coming from, and try to understand them, and then try to transform them into something that was more wise, more aligned with the laws of the universe.
So I have to say, I think for people who are listening who might not know what Qigong is, maybe you can tell us about it. I've practiced Qigong. I love it, but I'm fascinated by your commitment. Or maybe it's just so easy for you because it's a language. Because for doing Qigong for 6 to 8 hours, well, I don't know, doing anything for 6 to 8 hours, most people can't do. You know, most people get bored or want to go do something else. And so would you share with us how you would describe what the Qigong practice is? And then what is it that draws you to immersing yourself in it for so many hours a day?
So Qigong is a term that the Chinese use that means cultivating qi or work with qi. Qi is energy, information, and so this is the principle of Qigong. In China, there are thousands of Qigong methods, and not all are the same. There are many systems. There are systems that have associated with some religion like Buddhism or Taoism or with martial arts or with Chinese medicine, or some are just family systems. So there are thousands of Qigong systems. Some systems not so much, but exercises, let's say like that. Because some people know Qigong exercises, but they don't have a full system that want to reach a goal and has a proper path to reach that goal, and a proper theories to fundament that practice. But Yuan Gong, that is the Qigong system that we use in Ren Xue, is a Qigong system that has a very clear path, a very clear sound theory that was created by the experience that Yuan Xue has from learning so much in China from many different teachers and systems, and from his own life cultivation, a very hard one. So he created this system with the best that he got from all his experience, from his consciousness, and is giving this for me. In fact, we have one method that most of the people are not aware of that, but I was, because I started to learn about Qigong since the early age. That was one of they were say that was the highest method of Qigong, but they say that was lost. No one knew it about. And normally was transmitted by in secret. But Yuan Tse know about that system and integrated in the Yuan Gong system. So we are learning and we have access to that method too. And then there is some things that are very unique that other Qigong systems don't have, that they work on the heart qualities and they work on the consciousness. That this is very, very rare to find a Qigong system that has this. And much less the Qigong system that even work on and have understanding of the laws of the universe, and also the special states and manifestation, how induce the special states of our true self to gain realization and wisdom. As far as I know, and I don't know everything, of course, but I have some good experience. I have not ever met another system that can be compared with his.
Yeah, it sounds very comprehensive. So when you're doing this for 6 hours, are you just immersed in joy? What is your experience?
It depends. In the beginning, I was immersed in pain.
Okay.
Because when we have some health problem, it means that there is a blockage. And if there is a blockage, when the chi is pushing through that blockage, we feel pain. It's just normal. It's just part of the process. But it depends. It depends many things. Sometimes I'm just bored in doing it.
That's good to know.
Sometimes I'm, of course, it's important to know that those things are just natural and normal. Sometimes we are tired. I remember once that because I was doing the practice every day. So once I was traveling to New Zealand, and after 42 hours of traveling, I arrived there and I wanted to do the practice. And I was so tired that I fell asleep while standing in my feet.
Oh my, yeah.
So we go through all sorts of experiences. It's not that every time that we do that we reach the perfect state of practice. It's not at all. But most of the cases I do get quite a deep status, and right now where I am now is very easy. With, let's say, with 5 minutes of practice, I can get more than I was used to get with 8 hours before. But that is also because the conscious has evolved, the level of unification has evolved, the level of true understanding has evolved. So we can get much more than I used to get before. And we also have a method that we learn to practice at everyday life. So it means that we don't need to close our eyes to be practice or to do any specific movement. We can do it while eating, while walking, while talking with other people, etc. So this creates a lot of practice. In fact, now I practice more than before and harder, although it doesn't look like that.
That's really
But
interesting.
what we can experience is where many things can come. It will depend of the person.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing that because I think that people look at somebody who would practice Qigong for 6 or 8 hours as some sort of like you're not human anymore. So I love that you're bringing the humanity in. That sometimes it's boring, or sometimes it hurts, or sometimes whatever, because I think that makes it more accessible. I want to chat with you in a minute, Kim, but I want to also talk about your healing because is it all just energy, Norberto? Is it all just energy? Because you had a back condition that the doctor was saying you would need a cage around your spine and a removal of discs. Okay, so that's like, to me, that's like something that looks very physical. Like there's something physically wrong there
Mm.
with those bones and the way the discs are lining up, or whatever. And then now you don't need that anymore. So was that just an energy blockage that your practice of the Qigong, as well as the inner work and the consciousness and working on your heart and your patterns, release that block?
No, there was physical damage. So basically, the discs, they were smashed, and there was a slicing of the vertebrae. So the vertebrae were not like this; they were like this. So is the listhese, and there was a few other degenerations and problems that they were there. That they are not there anymore because I have done the exams, and it seemed that the spine is fine now. At least last time I made the exams. They just show normal disc side of the vertebra. So it means that in theory, in our medicine, the disc cannot regrow again, but it seems that it has grown.
See, that's fascinating. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is
But
fascinating.
what is the change? Of course, everything is energy. If we even look to our physics, we know that 99.9999% of an atom is empty, it's not really matter. So what we call matter is just agglomeration and concentration of energy and information in a certain form that has a certain density and a certain resonance, and can be changed and transformed if we do a proper practice with our consciousness, with the information that we generate, because it's not just our conscious thoughts that generate information. We generate information with our states, with our even with the food that we take, with what we see with our eyes, with what we hear, etc. All those things create information. Then, of course, our body will react to that, and will affect how our body will work. But the main generator of information that we have in our structure is what we call the patterns of the consciousness. Those are the ones that process information, that receive and process information and gives a reaction to that information. And most of the times, those are acting without us being aware that they exist. And that is what is a huge problem for humanity, because we think that they are taking decisions, and they are not. Patterns are taking decisions for them. But they make it to feel very real. Even things that are not real, they look very real, because then they gauge the feelings and the emotions and physical sensations. So people feel all that, and they say must be the reality, and it's not.
Can you share what some of those patterns are? Not necessarily for you personally, but what are some of the patterns that we would be looking at?
There are many. In Ren Xue, you describe the 10 fundamental patterns that basically are patterns that are present in And I have never found a human without them. So sometimes people have a very basic understanding of them. This is why they cannot see them. But if we explore all the humans who have them, and patterns like hiding and avoiding, negativity, self-centeredness, greediness, fixed expectations, polarized thinking, and many others. So if we want to be honest, there are thousands of patterns, but these are relatively more at the root level. So a lot of patterns are coming out from these ones. And these are very connected with our survival instinct. So this is what makes them so strong. And the patterns are just a normal aspect of our conscious. The problem is that when they were created, they have not enough information to be created in a healthy way. So let's say if a child learns that can only receive the love from the parents by being successful, that child might become very greedy about being successful. And then Sershin becomes the most successful person in the world and doesn't have love. So that child will suffer a lot because has done everything that was right to receive the love, and the love is not there. So that is the problem. And that is because that pattern is controlling the life of that child.
Yeah, very interesting. I think just the way you're listing a few of those, I'm sure everybody who's listening, they may not have time to really find which exactly is theirs, but they're all familiar. And certainly we can see them in our friends and our family members. It's harder to see in ourselves. But I love the way you describe that. So the healing is the movement of energy in the body, but it's also the really looking deep into yourself and working on those patterns and releasing the hold that those patterns have on you until you become a much more present and expansive human being, which I believe is what you've evolved to. We can talk about that in a minute, but Kim, I do want to bring you back into this conversation. You're sitting there very patiently. I'm very
No,
interested.
that's so good.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to hear about your perspectives as the filmmaker. Your films are beautiful. This is a beautiful film, and it's very calming, and a lot of it takes place in Norberto's home environment, and his parents are absolutely adorable. I mean, at least I think so. They're wonderful people. And I'm just wondering, as a filmmaker, what are you trying to accomplish and what do you learn from this kind of experience?
Well, I should say I'm also did the same training that Noberto did. So
Okay, so you've done it too.
I know
All right.
I'm in within the system.
Okay.
So I've known him a long time, and we've been filming for a long time. And there's just so much that I receive from it. I can't even begin to tell you. You know, in terms of just spending time with Noberto is an amazing experience for any of us on the crew, just in filming any time. And of course, with his parents, they were great. I think this last film was really challenging because there were just things that, how do you tell a story where you can't really put words to what the experience is? And especially as it got deeper and deeper. And we didn't have the answers. You know, we just, in the editing, we just would try so many things. And we were led by what footage and the story wanted to be. So we really had to surrender to that. And we didn't know how long it would take. I mean, there were times the editor and I would have just sessions with Noberto to try to unify myself and the editor with the material that was trying to come through. Yeah, so it's a creative process. You know? It's wonderful, and I love it. And yeah, I don't think I would do anything like this without something that I felt enormous respect and love for, because it's a lot. You know, it's just a lot. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy, and there's just so much that you receive, and so much that I've received in terms of just being able to look back at my own self and my own patterns with awareness and learning what even awareness is. So I'll just stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the way you're describing it is so interesting. I had forgotten that you were part of the training as well. So one of the things it sounds like you're trying to do is to, share this gift of the world and share Norberto and his amazing transformation. But the way you describe it, it is that spiritual path is surrendering and allowing what's coming through you to be birthed. And that's what it sounds like to me. It's like it had a life of its own. The film was already created, and it was really just about you and the editor allowing it to move through you and be created almost as if you're the midwife.
Right, exactly. I think that's a very good description of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. I do want to talk a little bit about your parents. I've mentioned them because I think what's so cute about your parents is, they're like regular parents that have some ideas about what their son's gonna grow up and be, and I think that you were kind of an unusual child in the beginning because of I think you were kind of searching spiritually in your own way early on. But still, parents, they just can't help it. They have some thoughts about you're going to be doing something kind of like what I do, or, go to college and get this kind of job or whatever. We're all conditioned to think our children are going to do something that we've imagined that they might do, even if there's a wide range. And they're just kind of like shaking their heads about Norberto. And they seem very proud, but still kind of like, we don't get it completely.
Well, they don't, because I have a very introvert nature, so it's very rare that I tell everything. And so I have never opened to them as much. They know that I have my different ways of seeing life. They also are very sensitive, and they have a openness to many different things, because they also, in their own generation, the culture where they are growing, they were kind of different from the rest of the other people from their group. So they are school teachers, so they had this ability to educate and to open to the needs of the others, and to guide them, and so on. But of course, they do have their concerns about safety, because I don't know how much you know about Portuguese story, but they were that generation that came out from dictatorship, and they face some challenges. Like on those times, it was not easy for someone, let's say an average person, to go to college. That was normally only the ones that were from wealthy people were allowed to go to college. But they were able to do it, and of course, because they gave so much value to that, they put that into ourselves, which was good, because I admit that was very important for my own growth and education, and make the things much clearer for me. But then there was also this concern about having a life job that was for life, let's say, like that. That you know what you're going to earn, and you know that you have your social security done and your retirement for certain, and so on. And that was not my style. So I was more the one that was saying we should follow our dreams no matter what.
Yeah. Well, it's inspiring. It is inspiring. And I think, again, it's another surrender process where, you've surrendered to how life is coming through you. And then your parents are faced with having to surrender what their thoughts about you and whatever success would look like for you, and just surrender and trust that the universe, the great mystery, whatever we want to call it, God is working through you, and that you are on the right path. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's conveyed really well in the movie. Why don't we talk a little bit about, though, because i- in all of your working with the I'm gonna mispronounce this too, the Ren Xue,
Ren Xue,
the
yes, yes.
Ren Xue, the cultivation path. At some point, you stood out to Yuan Se. You stood out to him that you had reached some pinnacle or some level of evolution, of consciousness. And so can you share a little bit about that, and what that awareness is like?
Well, it was uh, simple in the way because I had no clue what happened to me. So basically, one day I was experiencing a lot of suffering. And one day, while experiencing that suffering, I was on my bed and I was doing a practice. And in a moment, maybe a couple of seconds, there was a sentence on that meditation, that practice, that was giving to our Shen, that is our true self, all the freedom that it has. And on that moment, I went so deep that I was able to make a full unconditional surrender. Uh, and although there was just like a couple of seconds, I had time like to go through all my life and surrender everything, surrender everything that I wanted, everything that I loved, everything that I don't wanted. So everything I could surrender, my family, my love, my health. I was no matter. I was saying, okay, everything that I have contact, that I touch, that is present in my life, I just surrender everything. And whatever you give me, I will receive it. Doesn't matter if you give me more suffering. Doesn't matter if you give me happiness or whatever. So I surrender unconditionally, and I was willing to receive any kind of consequences for that without any conditions. And on that moment, I experienced a huge state of joy and freedom, and I started to cry and my heart was open, like breaking all the rib cage and feeling a lot of light and all those things. And that's it. And then the next day, I was experiencing happiness. I was feeling really nice. I was not being affected by the things that used to affect me. I was just feeling joy. And I was not saying anything. But then one day, I don't know, I remember why, but I started to exchange emails with Melissa, that is Yonce's wife and translator. So she sent me a message, and I answered, and I say something about myself, and then she kept me asking me questions and questions and questions, and then we were not talking about anything. So I think was for 3 days, she made long questions, many hours. And then after that, she said, okay, Yonce wants to talk with you. And I would say, well, did I made something wrong? Because Yonce
Am I in
never asked
trouble?
to talk with me. Yeah, I'm in trouble. Uh, so then Yonce came and make me questions for around 2 hours or 2 or 3 hours. And then at the end, he told me, congratulations, you have reached a big realization. And he told me, did you know what is that? And I say, yes, but I didn't know what it was. I say yes. And then we closed up. I went to Google on that, and I got a bit scared with the words that were associated with that meaning, because I was just feeling normal. Maybe the first time in life that I was feeling normal.
Mm-hmm. 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 Like that's the natural
And I
state.
was feeling happy. Yeah, it's a natural state and free and happy and natural and normal, and don't be attached to the things, ready to let go what needs to go, ready to receive what needs to receive, just flowing with life like that. Then there was other experience that they were more strange, but because I was in the state of openness and detachment, I was not very affected by them on a negative way.
I think I don't know if I wrote this down exactly right, but when you were at that place where like whatever you give me, I will receive. If it's more suffering, I will receive it. If it's more joy, I will receive it. I think that's so interesting because I I th- I think when people think, well, I'm surrendered, whatever you give me, I'll receive. I think people are expecting to receive a life purpose or some kind of validation, but to go, if it's more suffering, I receive that. I mean, that is a very, very surrendered state. If it is more suffering, I will receive that, or I do receive that. I think that's an ultimate statement of surrender.
Well,
It's
we cannot surrender by doing business with it. It's
You're
not
right.
doing business.
You're right. You're right. That doesn't mean
I think,
people don't try.
yeah,
Go ahead, Kim.
and I think it speaks to his level of trust.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah, it reminds me of the story of Job in the Bible. I don't know if you're familiar with all that, but Job ends up suffering and suffering and suffering and suffering, and the whole book is about all of his suffering, but he's not resentful. He's just, whatever you give me, I will take on. And ultimately it transforms for him. But he has that, it's a story, really interesting story where it's like what I'll take it all on. So, and I think that's a really great way of describing awareness, or what awareness would be like, that you're accepting of the presence, whatever the presence is.
Absolutely. It cannot be done in another way. We cannot do business. And we are not selling, how to say, we cannot do business with what does not belong to us. So
Yeah.
surrender basically is just to acknowledge the true owner of what we are experiencing and what we are seeing, and remain as we are in our natural state.
Yeah.
Uh, if we want to achieve something with surrender, then that is a business, it's not negotiation. That is a lot of patterns. There is a pattern of fixed expectation behind, there is a pattern of self-centeredness, there is many things behind playing the role, maybe some greediness behind. Yes, maybe some try to avoid something because I want to surrender to have happiness, so I want to avoid the suffering. And why? I avoid the lessons that I get from suffering. What is the point of that? That is not true surrender at all. That is just an illusion. Of course, we can do partial surrender with small things and do progressively growing with that. As we grow trust and so on. But the true surrender means that we don't want anything back. We don't do any business.
And there's no conditions. Yeah.
No conditions, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you are teaching. You're teaching in this tradition. Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah, that is my main activity. I do teach at this moment. I teach mostly online because when I started to teach, there was COVID, so online was the only way to teach. And over time, some group of people kept following me and following my classes, and has created a very enjoyable way to teach. Although I don't see their faces, I can feel them. uh,
I have to
but
wonder
it's
if
nice.
you can heal your back and grow your discs. I mean, certainly COVID wouldn't, certainly at some point, COVID wouldn't impact us, right?
It will depend because we can say there are three levels of healings. One, the physical healing that is due to physical conditions is quite easy. The energetic healing can also be quite easy. Can happen in 1 hour, something like that. Emotional healing can be more complex. Consciousness healing, even more complex. And then there is one deep level of healing that is healing your law of life. And that can only be changed, that can be only be achieved by transforming the law of life of humanity, or in this case was humanity because this problem of COVID was affecting all humanity. So although it seems just a virus, from my perspective, was not just a virus, it was a bringing of awareness to many things that they need to be transformed in humanity. And there was a lot of warnings happening before that, but humans keep not doing anything. They keep going on denial, and we see that COVID has stopped, but the problems have not stopped at all.
So we're coming up on our hour, but before I'll let you guys have your final statements. I'm interested in, do you have a sense of where the world is going, or what your role is in what's going on in the greater world right now?
Well, the world is going through so there are many laws that are affecting the world. The law of change, that is just a natural law that is affecting the world. But the law of change, things will change according to other laws, like the law of cause and effect or the law of resonance. And if we look at this moment, humans are not in a very high level of resonance, and the selfishness that we are manifesting is quite intense because technology has helped us to improve our patterns, manifestations of our patterns. So, which could be good if they are healthy patterns, but if they are not so healthy, they can. We can see like 100 years ago, not 100. Well, 100 is not that long, but 500 years ago, people want to go, let's say, from Portugal to United States was a whole journey. There was a lot of things. Now they can do it in a few hours, which can be good or bad. But the consequences of doing that in the way that we are doing has its own consequences, of course. Because once I heard the pilot saying how much fuel they were burning in one flight like that, and was a lot of tons of fuel being burned. So it's like even now, in the past, we had clothes. I remember even myself when I was a child, when my socks had a hole, my parents will just stick it, which is now if they have a hole, they throw and even without the hole, they just out of fashion, they throw it to the garbage and that's it. They buy new ones because it's so cheap, because other people in another part of the world are being the slaves of the others that have the money to buy the things. But that has consequences. Cloth industry is, I think, is the third more polluting industry in the world. So that will create consequences in our nature, in our food, just to satisfy the ego of people of wanting more and more clothes. Not what they need, of course. We need clothes. We need to have a certain quality of our look, of course, and clothes that we dress. That is natural, but more than we need, or throwing the things to the garbage just because I don't feel to use it anymore. After a few months of using them, or using just once, like some people used to undress once and they throw it to the garbage. That is not healthy at all. But the technology that we have now is supporting those kind of behaviors and patterns that are damaging the world. And if we don't create a very strong awareness of what is really going in a deep level of humanity and be able to transform the things, because the things are being so fast and so powerful with technology right now, the impact it can have can be huge. But change is possible. And I
Well, and
do
I
trust
think it's
Ren
about
Xue.
consciousness. I mean, if it's really about consciousness and raising consciousness one consciousness at a time. I think that's the most we can do is try to raise our own consciousness, raise our own awareness, share
Yeah,
what we know. But you're in the consciousness business. I mean, if it's a business, you're in the consciousness activity, helping people heal, helping people open their awareness, helping people evolve. Because I think once you get to these higher states, you start seeing these not just your own patterns, but the patterns in the world, like ones that you just shared. I mean, animal agriculture is another one. Just how much, and how much cruelty and how
mm,
much, how much there is, killing and using animals that we don't need to be doing. That's another thing that once you get to a certain consciousness, you start to see. And so I think it was we just start to all do our work in raising consciousness. That's where the hope is for me that we can bring like, your awareness about clothes, or whatever, we can start to see things differently, and we do. So
that is the thing because humans have a very strong pattern of complaining, but very rarely humans have the responsibility to take responsibility for themselves and change. Because people are hoping to be the savior to save them, but we have had so many saints going through all this humanity. And if people are not ready to make the transformation from within, it doesn't matter what we do.
mhm,
If they don't embrace, they don't make the work. Okay, I want to live in the resonance of love and do the work to do that. I can be all the sages of all humanity talking about love. That is not enough if people don't
yeah,
do the work.
yeah, yeah,
So
and
it's
I think
important that every single one takes responsibility for themselves.
yes, I completely agree, and I do want to give each of you an opportunity to say the last few words. If there's something that you haven't shared, Kim, is there anything else you'd like to add to this podcast?
I, I think both what both of you just said about doing the inner work and raising the level of what humanity is really the message of the film. I wanted to say, thank you both for saying that. And for me, going into it, having a Buddhist background years ago, and where we weren't even supposed to talk about the word enlightenment, I remember that. And then realizing that, oh, well, maybe I could talk about it, but what is it? And then thinking it was one thing, and then and that kind of blew off. That I now, there's no limit to the possibilities, for humanity. And that's just a really hopeful thing to me. That it's amazing. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because this podcast is about hope and inspiration and awakening, and everything we're talking about today, it fits in those three categories: hope, inspiration, and awakening. Norberto, do you have any last words?
Well, I do have, because this is a thing that is important to look. Humans, when they look to other humans, they don't see the true human, they see their patterns. But every human has a true self, and every human has a pure heart. And calling for those to wake up and to come out and take place and charge of their lives, it's what we need to do. When all the humans remember who they really are and what is our true nature, then true hope can come to the world.
I completely agree. What is up for all of us now is to remember who we are and to do whatever the work is to expose that natural state. And I love the term natural state, that our natural state is not the patterns. Our natural state is our origin, the divinity within us. So thank you, Norberto and Kim, for sharing your journeys. The film, I highly recommend it. I think it's a beautiful film. I'm excited that you did a second film. And maybe there'll be a third, Norberto, as you continue to
Sure.
evolve and become more aware and share more of yourself in the world.
Well, thank you so much for this interview and to have us with you.
Yes.
It's been
Thank you,
fun.
Carol. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. Maybe we'll have you back on another 3 years. But anyway, thank you guys, and thank you everybody for listening. And I hope that you are feeling hopeful and inspired and are awakening from the patterns that are running our lives. And I now close the spiritual forum.